welcome to 1991 Movie Rewind, a podcast where we watch and review every movie released in 1991, from the all-time greatest classics to the critically panned and everything in between. We will rediscover forgotten fan favorites and uncover hidden gems as we explore the depths of direct-to-video. Join us in our celebration of the fun, unique, and diverse films of this highly underrated year. This week, we watched Daughters of the Dust. Daughters of the Dust takes place in Ibo Landing in 1902. Viola Peazant and Yellow Mary are briefly returning home to the Southern Sea Islands for a family reunion before saying their permanent goodbyes. Despite heartfelt protests from the matriarch Nana Peazant, played by Cora Lee, Viola, Yellow Mary, and most of the Peazant family are heading north to the mainland to start a new life. Screenplay by Julie Dash, directed by Julie Dash, and premiered at the Sundance Film Festival in January 1991. Have you seen Daughters of the Dust before?
No, I haven't.
Me either. I honestly didn't know this movie existed until probably it got something of a resurgence in its 25th anniversary in like 2016.
Yeah.
I think that's the first time I had ever even really heard of it.
I think, yeah, same. Because I think, when researching for this a little bit, it looked as if for the 25th anniversary, they re-released the movie at the Chicago Film Festival, the international. Yeah.
Okay. So
this was for 2017, I think, 2016 or 17. Yeah.
Yeah, and I haven't really been to too many film festival screenings in Chicago in quite some time, so I kind of lost track of that world.
Yeah, I mean, I only just look at the list of movies and want to go, but now that it's only, I don't know, this is between us.
It's too inconvenient for us to go.
It's only playing...
Even though we're in Chicago, it's very inconvenient.
It used to be at multiple theaters, now it's only one, and the one theater is hard to get to.
And expensive to park at and all that stuff.
Yes.
So it's less on our mind.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, I think around that time also we started seeing that appear more in pop culture or like media, newspapers, in terms of like lists of most important movies of the 90s.
Right.
I remember seeing an episode about the Gullah people, like United Shades of America, the W. Kamau Bell series on CNN, where
yes.
It was mentioned in that episode as well. And so
also we watched the Taste the Nation with Padma Lakshmi.
Yeah.
She did a episode about their food and, the same, sort of the same thing as the W. Kamau Bell, but mostly focusing on their food.
Yeah. And so, like, it's becoming more known now
right.
than it was then. And I think, and I don't really know exactly why I was swept under the rug. I mean, obviously, if you ask Julie Dash, she's going to say it's because of, sexism and racism.
Mm-hmm.
It's just really interesting to see sort of the dichotomy of, like, here's this beautiful poetic film, and we'll talk about the content of the film in a second, I guess, that is getting all this praise at Sundance. Like, it won the Best Cinematography Award at Sundance. It was nominated for the Grand Jury Prize, which eventually went to Poison by Todd Haynes. It was also nominated for an NAACP Image Award for Most Outstanding Motion Picture the following year, because it got a wide release in 1992, and it lost out to Sister Act, which is a weird one to win. But, so, I mean, like, certain circles knew about it. You'd think that there would be something of a groundswell, or, like, It's weird to think about that the movie, which is all about remembering your past, mm-hmm. and maintaining this through line of your culture and your people, that the movie kind of skipped a generation or two before it started to be remembered by its, you know what I mean?
No, I get it. And then there's another reference, sort of recently, but Beyonce used a lot of the imagery from this movie in her long Lemonade video. Did you ever watch?
I never watched
Lemonade?
it. No.
I watched it once when it first came out, and then when I was researching for this again, I saw that it was referenced in there, so I watched it a second time, and then there's like, a whole vignette. It's very similar to the imagery in this movie, and just the clothing, and then like the moss trees and stuff like that.
Okay.
So she sort of like paid homage to this movie in Lemonade. So yeah, we're seeing a lot of this like referencing like within the past maybe 5 to 10 years.
That's obviously a very good thing.
Yeah.
I think part of the issue that happened in the 90s is that people get caught up on sort of the stereotypical stuff like the New Jack City and the Boys in the Hood, where it's, there's...
Yeah, they're like...
the urban environments, which
glamorizing
are more...
this, the whole gangster life.
Yeah, it's easier to latch on to or, victimize. And this is just a wholesome family celebrating its life and its people. Mm-hmm. So I mean, that's sort of like the aspect of racism that I think Julie Dash would probably speak to is, this is too positive of an image to be carried forward for a while. And you got, Boys in the Hood in New Jack City, which glorifies the thug life and gang culture and things like that. That's what was latched onto by the media and pop culture at the time and carried forward for a while. So it's interesting to see, hopefully, that this movie continues to have its life afterwards because it deserves it. I think, we talked about how the cinematography won the best cinematography award at Sundance, right. Done by Arthur Jaffa, who was Julie Dash's husband. I completely agree. I mean, I haven't seen everything that was at Sundance, so I don't fully know, but I mean, my God, is this movie beautiful?
Yeah.
Especially like right away.
Yeah, I would put this like this and All the Mornings of the World.
Yes. Yeah, very painterly.
Way up.
Yeah, very painterly shots.
Cinematography wise, yeah.
Beautiful still life shots in there too. So you have some shots of, like the baskets of fruit and some of the food, because they do show a lot of close-ups of the food, which I think is an important aspect of this. Early on, you're just treated to these images of extremely orange skies. It's either, I'm assuming, twilight. Probably not dusk. Probably not dawn. It's probably dusk, although I'm not 100% sure. So you have these extremely orange skies, and like the leaves and the reeds along the coast are just pure black. And, you have this nice balance and contrast and everything. And, beautiful beach settings. And it sounds like it was something of a complicated shoot because of the weather. And there was a hurricane that passed through the region at the time that they were shooting. And so they kind of had to run and gun when they could and get some of the shots. So it's kind of even more amazing that it turned out as well as it did, considering some of the issues. Because for the most part, it seemed like it was a very... I don't want to say tropical environment, but very sunny. There's like only one little tiny spot where it says, "Oh, look like rain," but otherwise it was very clear skies, and you have like the white outfits, and you have little pops of color here and there, and even when you have darker scenes and you have this contrast, because you have some of the older women within the town. They don't really establish the building structure of this, like a village town.
Yeah,
I don't know what to call it.
Well, they sort of live on, because I was...
communities, maybe the best word?
This island. Because I was getting a little confused where they said they wanted to go to the mainland. Mm-hmm. So they're living... Well, I mean,
They're living in islands, yeah.
Yeah, I looked this up. It's just, the southern region... along like South Carolina and Georgia, just down there. There's, a slew of islands. So they were probably living off all that.
Yeah.
And their whole lives, it seems like, at least the younger generation, and they all want to go to the mainland. But it didn't really say, it says that they all want to go north, so...
Yeah, so this is, it's meant to talk about the Great Migration that happened, where a lot of former slaves moved from southern states where they were being removed from opportunities. Even though slavery was abolished, there's still systemic racism in place, and so they were moving north en masse in order to have greater opportunities and hopefully not come across a lot of those bureaucratic roadblocks that they were definitely experiencing in the South, probably because of word of mouth that came from the North saying that things are better here than they would be in, say, South Carolina or Georgia for you. So if you're willing to make the trek up north, then hopefully we can find something. So that's the impetus of it. And Yellow Mary spent some time, I think they said, in New York. Some of the dialogue moves very fast, so I don't really get all the full history of the characters.
I was getting a little confused because of how they shot it. Well, it's just like little tiny vignettes of random conversations between this family. So it'll be, like the grandmother with one of her daughters for like 5-10 minutes about something.
Yeah.
And then it'll be, Mary talking to her cousin and whatever about something else. But it's like you had to piece together their story once the entire movie was done.
Yes.
Because, it's just little, I don't know, like vignettes, but it's not like in chronological order, their conversations, I guess. Because I was getting a little confused about where Yellow Mary was coming from, and then we know that within the movie she wants to go to Nova Scotia because she just says it sounds cool, the name.
Right. Yeah, it is an atypical structure for a movie.
Yeah, but it sounded as if she was all over because...
Yeah, she attached herself as basically like the nanny for a family, like a rich family.
Yeah, but then it also...
And so they moved to different places, including Europe. And I think she spent some time in New York as part of that.
Okay. And then, but it seems as if she was also like a sex worker. Because her cousins and aunts, maybe, were sort of criticizing her.
Well, I don't know. It's either that, or I guess we should probably give a trigger warning right now, because there's another character where it's definitely applicable.
Oh, yeah.
For rape.
Yeah, sexual assault.
So, I think that's probably what happened to Yellow Mary. She might not have been a sex worker, but it sounded like from what Eula was saying near the end, it's like, why are you shunning Yellow Mary,
yes,
and you're not shunning me, even though I'm also tainted, quote unquote, in the same way. Yeah, and so like Yellow Mary was impregnated by someone against her will, in one way or another, and then
that baby died.
Passed. Is stillborn, I think, right? Is that what they said?
I think so. And I mean, she was still producing milk, so that's why she became sort of a nanny for this rich family and was feeding their children. Yeah, and then it's like breastfeeding their children.
And she has the line here, I fixed the titty and they send me home. Mm-hmm. Right, so like as soon as the milk ran dry, you're useless to us.
Right.
Goodbye. So yeah, it is difficult, but yeah, I think there were a couple people, and I forget where Viola had come from, but early on in the movie, Viola and Yellow Mary meet up on this boat that's taking them downstream or river to Ibo Landing, where the family is, as something of like a mini reunion before the main reunion. And so they're both from out of town. They both have established themselves up north to some degree, and by up north we basically just mean, off the island.
Yeah, they could still be. That's why I was like, they could still be coming from like South Carolina. I mean, they don't really say.
I think that's where Viola was, but I'm not 100% sure.
I mean, they bring. So Viola brings this photographer, and then
Mr. Sneed.
Yeah, Mr. Sneed and Yellow Mary. I mean, I had to look this up. That the other woman. Trula was like her lover.
Yeah, they never say that.
They don't say it at all, but I had to look it up. Because, I mean, they kind of show them holding hands and running off, and they're always together just laughing, and I'm assuming they were like smoking weed, maybe?
I don't know. I don't remember seeing anyone smoke. But
they were like hanging out in a tree. They were hanging out in a tree smoking and cracking up and being kind of silly. So I was like, okay, maybe they were just smoking. And that's why I always thought that's why everyone shunned Yellow Mary, because she was like the wild child, quote unquote. I don't know.
Yeah, maybe. I mean, there's also obviously a religious aspect to this whole story as well, where Viola is very much,
she becomes the like
Christian,
the Baptist, very devout Christian, and then this is throughout the movie where she's kind of, I guess, shunning her grandmother or her mom. See, the matriarch.
Yeah, they call her grandmother, but I don't think it's tough to say because they don't really go through introductions to characters because of the way the structure is done. But so they're saying like Nana is the grandmother of people like Yellow Mary and Viola and
Eula. She's kind of like she's the
great grandmother of the narrator, who is an unborn child, which we'll get into later as well. But I don't ever remember hearing who is the mother to Yellow Mary or Viola. If she's, I'm assuming that just means that she's no longer with the family.
Right, or she could just be the aunt, because they're all kind of cousins too. Viola and Yellow Mary are cousins, and they say that they share the same, like their mothers were sisters, I think.
Could be.
They say it in the beginning.
But yeah, if the mothers are actually there, we don't get
see. We
may
see them, but they didn't establish who was whose mom's or sister or cousin. I mean, they do say cousin to each other.
Yes.
But yeah,
the relationships between some of the characters are confusing in this, to say the least. But to get back to the religious point of it all, Nana is she practices hoodoo, which is very common in the Gullah culture, especially at that time, even somewhat today, from what I understand with the brief research that I did. So forgive me if I'm wrong. And so that obviously flies in the face of the Christian teachings, and so there's that battle within the family as well, and don't teach our kids these things and don't say these things when Jesus is the true Lord and Savior. And that sort of everything kind of culminates at the end in a lot of emotional eruptions.
You also do have the older man, Bilal.
Yes.
He was more of a practicing... They do say this also, that
he's a practicing Muslim.
And he's kind of like...
And he's also kind of shunned.
He's been shunned pretty much, but he's kind of like a loner, too. Like, he doesn't really mind being a part of this family or not a part of it. He just does his own thing.
Yeah, and a lot of what his own thing is working on anti-lynching legislation, up north in the mainland, and so he's not around a whole lot either.
Yeah.
But yeah, there are some minor things, and the reason Bilal comes into play is that he is supposedly, I think what they said is he is the last person to come over on the slave ships that landed there.
Yes.
And he also tells the story of the other people. Was it the other people on the same slave ship? Or was it... Because they talk about... Okay. again, we're kind of going all over the place, but so does the movie.
Yeah.
There is the story that Eula tells. We have barely touched on Eula, but she's really sort of the main character in this whole story. There's this story that Eula tells is about men walking on water, and this is happening while another person is being eulogized, and the coffin is like floating in the water, and you see her husband Eli actually like walking on the water as she's telling the story.
That's the story of Ibo Landing.
Yes.
Which.
And so yeah,
that happened. It was where they're staying during this time. This was like in the early 1800s, before the slaves were to be sold. They all decided to, trigger warning.
Yeah.
They all decided to kill themselves instead of, being sold into slavery. And it was, they all kind of thought about this as a whole to go, and then it doesn't. So do they just like walk into the water and drown themselves? That's what I was assuming.
That's the impression that I get from what I saw as well. So yeah, the fairy tale version that Eula says is that basically they walk on the water and they escape back to Africa by walking on the water back home. Mm-hmm. But the real version that Bilal is talking about, because either he experienced it or he witnessed it, I don't know which, or he was just very close to when it happened, because the actual event was real and it happened in 1803.
He would have been older than the matriarch of this movie.
Right.
So he couldn't have seen it. So it's probably just,
that he knows the real story, but everyone's being told the lie of the fairy tale version of it.
Yes.
As if there's some mysticism or hoodoo, as it were, that allowed them to live.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, it basically is mass suicide to prevent them from becoming slaves. They decided to, I think, basically just walk into the water and just keep walking. And that is a real event.
Yes.
That they touch on in the movie, and it's something that I was not taught in schools. I looked it up after watching this movie, so that's one of the benefits of this is helps us learn.
Yeah.
You have to have the desire for the knowledge in order to acquire it, and I think this movie helps give that desire. Let's talk about Eula, if we can. So she's in essence the main character of this. She's, I guess, her and Nana.
Well, it kind of seemed as if it was like her, Nana, and then also Yellow Mary.
Yeah, I guess you can make. Yeah, that's a good point. You could probably make a good case for a lot of main characters.
Yeah, but those three were the ones that were focused on the most.
Maybe the reason I think Eula's the main character is because her daughter is the
her daughter is like her unborn daughter is the narrator of this movie. It's like Nana sometimes, and then the unborn daughter.
Yeah. Which I think is a really interesting device as well. Basically, this unborn child is narrating the movie as if she were there.
Yeah. And
we also see that she's there at certain times, which it took me about half the movie to realize that was going on.
Yeah, because I thought she was a ghost of a child that died or something, and she appeared, because there's a part where Mr. Sneed takes a picture of all the men in the family, and she appears, and then it looks as if Mr. Sneed saw her, because he looks up and he's like, what? And that's why I was like, is she a ghost? But then, I mean, you don't know who she is until like almost near the end.
Yeah,
when she says, when I become born.
And there's a scene where she runs into Eula's stomach and sort of vaporizes.
Yeah, and that's near the end. And you're like, oh, okay, that's her baby talking.
I mean, I figured it out a little bit before that. And the reason why is because there are certain scenes in this movie where there's like this fake slow motion that appears. And I am very attuned to fake slow motion. There's definitely a difference between what was done in Daughters of the Dust and what a traditional slow motion shot would be. Just a sidebar is like a film student thing. So when you're shooting slow motion, typically you are shooting more than 24 frames per second while you're filming, and then you project it back at 24 frames a second it's slower. This was done in post or digitally by either removing frames or pausing on frames in order to extend the life of the shot. So it wasn't like a continuous flow of motion, it was staggered and stuttered. And so I was thinking, well, why is that even happening? Why would you choose to do it this way instead of doing the traditional route of slow motion? And then about halfway through, I sort of made the connection of, here's this little girl with this blue ribbon in her hair, and it sort of seems like nobody's noticing her, and those slow motion scenes seem to only come about when she's on the screen. This is probably dreamlike, it's supposed to be jarring because it is unnatural, it is supernatural, whatever it is. So that's how I sort of pieced it together about halfway through, is like trying to look for the connections of like, why is this slow motion happening and when? And then I sort of pieced it together with the shots of the daughter. I'm assuming, Julie Dash, that was your intention, and if so, good job, because I hate fake slow motion, but if there's an actual reason behind it, then no problem. But I also think that, yeah, I would not be surprised if Mr. Sneed saw her, because one of the things that she says is, the ancestors in the womb, they are the same. So, even though she's not born yet, she's still a part of this world. She's still in there. And so I think that's also partly what's being conveyed. I think something else we should probably talk about really quickly is the fact that we were able to watch this movie with subtitles.
Even though they do provide subtitles
a couple times.
Yeah, when they do speak.
The accents are very heavy. That is intentional.
Yes.
If we did not have the subtitles, I think it would be a lot harder to follow. And again, that's intentional. I saw a quote from Roger Ebert in his review that basically, he watched it in a theater back when this originally released without that benefit of subtitles. And he likened it to being sort of like this warming comfort. It's like, yeah, you don't really necessarily need to know what they're saying all the time. It's sort of like you're a toddler at a family picnic and you're just kind of enjoying the presence of everyone around you. And I think that's a great way to put it if you're not able to watch it with the subtitles, but definitely try to, because it can be difficult to understand at times, not only because of the dialogue, but also because of the structure of the movie. It does demand your attention. There's little details all throughout, simple things like how, if you see a close-up of Nana's hands, you see that they're, stained and darkened from the indigo dye.
Yeah, they do a whole vignette, I suppose, about you can tell who was a former slave by the dye.
How long, yeah.
The dye of their hands, because, they had to use the dye for clothes. And they show the whole process of how they did that. I mean, they show the process of how they gathered the food and made the food for this whole picnic that they were going to have.
Yeah, there's several scenes of them making food at any given time.
Yeah.
And like little tiny things, like they're sticking pieces of okra on the heads of the kids, sort of make it look like, I don't know if it's supposed to be like devil horns or something like that, but...
Right. I mean, okra is very sticky, so right. I was like, okay. That's cute. It's just like how they entertain themselves, I guess, like the little kids. There is also like that scene where even when Mr. Sneed and Viola and Yellow Mary and Trula, they're in that boat on the way to this gathering, where they show them a kaleidoscope, and he was explaining how that was made or how it's shown.
Yeah, he had a little monologue that was meant to be sort of like a metaphor as well, I think.
Right.
Things, yeah.
And he was like, this is something I would give to the children to show them what it's like to be on the mainland. And then there was also that part where they showed the kids looking at like a newspaper, I think, where they're like pointing out.
Is there like a catalog, like a Sears catalog type of a thing?
And they're pointing out like random toys. So it's as if they're, the older generation is showing the younger generation, like, this is what you could have if you were on the mainland.
Yeah, it's interesting that, yeah, that's sort of like the beginning of consumerism in these children, as opposed to literally living off the land as they have.
Well, because they all seemed pretty happy anyways, just playing like on the beach.
Yeah, there's a lot of cultural things in here that are touched on that probably aren't really, well, they definitely aren't explained, but again, are not very common to us. Like the whole bottle tree thing, like the dancing, I think was a custom. You know, they're who are they? They're going around Iona, who we haven't really talked about either. Who is
That's another. I mean, she's another important. Since well, like all these, each woman, even like her mom too.
Yeah, Hagar or Hagar. I don't know.
Yeah, Hagar.
She's very standoffish. She's sort of like the snobbiest of the people on the island.
And they always, all the women in that family always remind her that she's married into this family. Like she wasn't she's not a Peazant by birth. Yeah. And they always remind her of this, even whenever she criticizes something, because she's always sort of like criticizing something.
Right. Yeah, like you chose to be here.
Yeah. But she's not mean or anything. She's just kind of like,
it's tough to know what she really wants.
I'm done with this. I don't know.
Yeah, it's really tough to know what she wants because she's against Yellow Mary.
Yes.
But she also seems to be against Viola, who is sort of the polar opposite of Yellow Mary in many respects.
I don't know what I think she just wants to, because she's really controlling of her daughter Iona well.
Who's trying to be with
a Native American man.
Yeah, St.
Of that
Julian
island.
Lastchild, who is the only Native American that we see in there. But I think they give him a nice little moment as well, where they like have a letter written from him to Iona that she reads out loud and sort of, you know, honors what the Native American people used to call some of these areas that now are being settled by slaves and others. Yeah. Or former slaves. Talking about the cultural side of things. So yeah, they're doing this dance around Iona, and which I think is probably a cultural thing that I'm not very familiar with, but if you're aware, you are aware. And then things like the glass bottle tree, that had a significance that I don't understand. I tried to look that up as well, and it sounds like it's probably rooted in hoodoo, where spirits who are passing in the night will get trapped in the bottles. And basically, if you're hearing like, you know, the whistling of the bottles, that means there's a spirit trapped inside. Yes. And then that way they'll be killed in the morning when the sunlight comes, and you'll be protected. But the reason I wanted to mention that is because there's a scene where Eula's husband, smashes those bottles on the tree, and I knew that was significant in some way, and I just did not know why. And that's such a beautiful shot too. It just looks, you know,
he's frustrated because
he has a lot of inner turmoil.
He's frustrated because his wife Eula is going to have a baby and it's not his child, so he's just dealing with that.
Yeah. Well, he's not 100% sure if it's his child because, And the assumption is that Eula was taken by a white man at some point.
Yeah, but it seems as if Eula knows who it is, and he wants to know who it is. Isn't?
Yes. So Eula knows the person who did it, will not tell Eli who it was, because she's afraid that Eli will retaliate and get himself killed. Yes. But which leads into the whole anti-lynching thing that Bilal is going into.
Yeah, but I mean, he's just he's going through things. He's like, I don't know what to do. It's like, I won't love this child because it's not mine.
Yeah, he's afraid that he doesn't love his wife anymore in certain respects too.
Because she's been, quote, tainted.
Yeah, I forget what the exact word they use. They don't use tainted.
And then, he wrecks the bottles with the trees, and then Nana has to calm him down. Yeah. And then she tells, like, us, just him, like, you know, we're all family. This is this future child is going to be your family.
Right, like basically this is not the first time this has happened in the family.
Yes.
And they're saying this in this makeshift graveyard that they have, you know.
Yeah, and it seems as if they made these gravestones for all of their family members, because they show one for, I think, like Viola, and they show them.
They do.
They're all pre-made, so as if even if they die, they're all going to be buried there.
Well, yeah, I'm not sure if it's fully that, and I remember the word is ruined.
Oh.
That they said, not tainted, but ruined.
Okay.
Yeah, I think the intention of that is really just so that nobody forgets who was there. So I mean, obviously now we have tombstones, and it's, you know, we have birth records and certificates in government places, but one of the big points that Nana makes is that nobody was keeping records of this. You know, there was probably, you know, a lot of people who had to ancestrally mate because they were sold off and then they were returned back to a farm and nobody knew who anybody was.
Yeah.
And so it was up to us to keep our own records. And this is them keeping their own records. So it's like, yeah, this person was born here. And so it looks like a tombstone to us. Yeah. But to them, it's like, here's a celebration of life. Like, this is a birth certificate.
Their history.
Yeah. This is proof
this is where
that
they
I
came
exist.
from. Yeah.
And they have other things like, you know, the mini purse or the pocket that Nana makes near the end, and, you know, she has hair from her own ancestor in there, and she takes a lock of her own hair and puts it in there too. So I mean, there's little reminders, little trinkets, little things that go a long way. Boy, there's so much we could possibly talk about with this. It's just amazing how much we could possibly talk about.
I mean, I think this is all of this happens in a matter of a whole 24 hours.
Something like that. Yeah, they don't really give a specific time frame, but it's a very short turnaround between when they all meet up, when Yellow Mary and Viola return, and then everybody's getting ready, basically packing up and getting ready to go to the mainland almost immediately. And then there's like a big decision of who's going to stay behind and who's going to go. But yeah, it's very short. It's like 1 or 2 days. I mean, with the amount of food that they showed prepared, I would guess it's probably a couple days.
It seems to me like a full 24 hours. So, yeah, I mean, the movie is just all what we've been saying, just separate conversations across this island between random or various family members. And
yeah, it's like little slices of life for a very specific time period, very specific region.
And it's a reunion because, you know, a lot of people haven't seen Yellow Mary or Viola, so it's like them all catching up with each other, them all talking about the mainland, going up north, and then it's like this once they have their picnic, and after that it's like they all kind of wind down, and it's like, okay, we got to get ready, and then it's like another wind down where they do this thing, that whole thing with Nana with the, I don't know,
where they're saying their goodbyes because they're assuming if they're leaving, they're probably not going to come back before Nana passes.
Yeah.
Because she is the great grandmother to many of them.
Nana's going to stay.
Nana's staying for sure. She implores the whole family to stay as well because this is where life and history is. And they showed that sort of near the end as well, where they have a scene where she's younger and her husband Shad, and they're working on planting, you know, building this community up basically by themselves. And, you know, Daughters of the Dust comes from that scene basically where the soil is virtually dust, and, you know, they say, well, why are we going to do this? Because we have to. You know, there's that connection to the soil that Nana just will not give up, and she's afraid that other people are leaving that. But yeah, I think what you're talking about is that she has either I think it's a box or a book. I don't remember which, but it has some sort of
like a talisman type of thing.
Yes. And yeah, it's like kiss my hand, kiss this, and that's a hoodoo ritual type of a thing or ceremony that some people don't want to take part in.
family members do it automatically, but this thing with Viola, I will not be a part of this tradition.
Yeah,
even though it is a tradition, because like this is not the Christian way.
Right, yeah. She
And then
sees that as a heathen thing.
And then Hagar also kind of stands by Viola in this too.
Right.
But they're trying to convince the other family members to not do it. But then they're kind of scrambling near the end, and some of them do. But then it turns out, because then Viola finally does it.
Well, Mr. Sneed does it first, and then Mr. Sneed reaches down, kisses the talisman in her hand, and then goes and kisses Viola for what seems to be the first time.
Yeah, so it's like, does he romantically want to be with her? That's where...
I think so, yeah. Okay. And I think it's him basically trying to say that it's okay, we can coexist. Like it's okay for both things to be true. You know, that's what he's trying to impart to Viola through those actions. And then I think that's why Viola.
Yeah, eventually all the family members do this.
I don't think Hagar actually does.
Oh,
though.
Really?
Yeah, she like walks away.
Oh, okay.
And at some point, Trula doesn't, because she just straight up runs. I don't remember when that was, but Yellow Mary is starting to talk about how she wants to stay.
I mean, this is the other thing
and Trula just straight up runs away from the whole.
But Trula's not a part of that family. She's kind of like, because you see her just kind of being the bystander of
she's just kind of there in this movie. She doesn't have much.
She's
dialogue.
Just there to be
She's just there to be the companion of Yellow Mary.
Yes, and she's not a part of that.
To the mystery of her past.
Yeah, she's not a part of that family, so I understood that she didn't do it, because I was like, well, that's not her grandmother. So she's just sort of there witnessing all of this.
Yeah.
And then to go up to Nova Scotia with Yellow Mary, but I mean, at the very end, Yellow Mary stays. Yeah.
And as soon as Trula gets wind that Yellow Mary actually is thinking about staying, she books it.
Yeah, and I thought that was kind of like, to me, that was a little funny, awkward. I was like,
where are you actually going to go?
I was like, so Trula is alone.
Because you had to get there by boat.
Yeah, well, they show her in this boat at the very end with all of Yellow Mary's family, except for Yellow Mary. Like, if you did that to me, I'm like, what? Like, I gotta take this boat back with a bunch of people I don't really know.
Yeah, they don't have those types of conversations. But so a couple people stay, including Eli and Eula. Iona runs away with St. Julian Lastchild. There's
a whole thing where... So, I mean, Hagar is very controlling of her daughter Iona, and St. Julian arrives on his horse, and it seems as if St. Julian and Iona made this sort of pact or agreement, like, hey, she's probably told him, hey, I'm gonna be leaving with my family, but I don't really want to, can you come get me?
Right.
And that's, I mean, we don't see that at all. We just see him appear, and she sees him, and she runs towards him. And then Hagar's like trying to catch Iona, but all the other family members are like, no, let her go. And then she goes.
Yeah, and then she goes.
And then Hagar just leaves with the rest of the family.
And that's like one of the last shots is, you see them on the boat starting to head back upstream the river. And that's sort of how it ends. One other quick thing I do want to talk about here that we haven't mentioned at all is the music in this movie, because I don't know, I don't think I will find a better score for 1991 for a long time. I don't know if you felt the same way or not.
Yeah, I really liked it, and I was trying to find it.
It's so different than what I typically hear in terms of like a movie score. It didn't feel like it was. This isn't meant to be a negative, obviously, because I say I love it. It didn't seem like it was trying to like match the shots or the edits or anything like that. It wasn't like, it didn't feel like it was made for the movie, but it was like perfectly fitting the movie. It was atmospheric, it was like ethereal. It wasn't. It was like background music that just matched. It didn't feel like a score in the traditional sense to me. I don't know if I'm explaining that well.
I mean, it's kind of like they're traditional music brought into the movie at random times. Like, it wasn't... I don't know. Yeah, I don't know.
There were like a couple recurring themes,
right?
A couple recurring melodies that happened there. But again, it just
it was
felt
a
like
lot. It was like the music became very prevalent during just certain shots where it's just like where there's silence, pretty much. Like, it was very focusing on the music more than like a dialogue. Like, there would be, we see all these vignettes of dialogue, and then you have other vignettes of just the shot of the island, you have the beach, and that's when you hear the music, and then all you see is just her shots of various parts of the island with this music playing.
Yeah, and it's, I don't know, it just matches everything. I don't know, it just gives you the exact right mood. It sets the tone. So the music was done by John Barnes, who has done a few different things. He's done like Bebe's Kids and CB4. He did music for Living Single, Don't Be a Menace in South Central, while drinking your juice in the hood. He's also worked with like Michael Jackson on Captain EO and also the Bad music video, or he did like synthesizers on Bad, and he also worked on We Are the World. So the one downside in his list of credits that I found is that he wrote that song from Fast and the Furious 1, Watch Your Back, that we make fun of all the time. So
I mean, it's a memorable song.
It's a memorable song, but it's not a good one. So this is amazing work by John Barnes. So I want to make sure we at least mention that. I mean, we could go on for a long time on this. I think we probably need to move to other areas, but I think you get the idea that this is a very deep, rich movie with a lot of layers, a lot of components to it, and that is certainly well worth watching. Why don't we talk a little bit more about the cast and crew? I will say that is one negative in my eyes is that I think the acting was a bit too melodramatic. That's just my own personal feeling, especially like Eula's rant at the end. It just felt
like that was forced.
It's very, very stage play melodramatic.
I was thinking, I know Julie Dash wrote this. I was wondering, like, was this meant to be a play?
I don't think this was meant to be a play, no.
Because
from what
of
I
how
saw, that she wrote like a novelization of this afterwards, but no, I think this was originally meant to be a movie that she had been trying to get off the ground for years. Julie Dash, director and writer of this, she's been around for a long time before this. In 1973, she had a documentary, Working Models of Success. She's done other movies such as Love Song, Funny Valentines, and the Rosa Parks TV movie, which she earned a Directors Guild nomination for. She also did the music video for Tracy Chapman's Give Me One Reason song. She's done a bunch of short films as well as documentaries, but really did not have much mainstream opportunities after this the way that some of the other directors did, and we touched on that a little bit earlier in the episode as to potential reasons why. She has 2 films with the Library of Congress National Film Registry. This, which happened, I think, around... Oh, did I write down the date? Do you have it? 2004. The National Film Preservation Board put it on the registry. And then also her short film Illusions, which is a fictional film about a black woman passing as white because she is so light-skinned in order to get work in the modeling industry. That is also with the Library of Congress. She also did a 2017 documentary called The Travel Notes of a Geechee Girl, which was about Vertime Grosvenor, who does appear in this movie, and I'll talk about her in a second. She's probably, before this movie, was probably the biggest, mainstream Gullah Geechee touchstone that people would have. Talked about Arthur Jaffa doing the cinematography. He had done work on Crooklyn. He did some photography work for the movie Selma. He did the directing of a Kanye West Travis Scott video, Wash Us in the Blood, which I have not seen, but he's been around a little bit. Cora Lee, who played Nana, she's going to be in a couple more 1991 movies, One Good Cop and Grand Canyon. She's been in What's Love Got to Do with It. She's also been in some of the other older exploitation movies, such as like Dr. Black and Mr. Hyde. A movie called Bush Mama, My Brother's Wedding, The Human Tornado. Elva Rogers, who played Eula, has not been in much at all. She was in School Days before this, and she had a couple other tiny small roles that did not look like familiar projects to me. But that's just about it. This is really her biggest one. Barbara O played Yellow Mary. We'll see her, well actually we won't see her, in the 1991 Powerful Thing. That's a short film, but it looks interesting. She was also in Bush Mama, Demon Seed, and Black Chariot. Viola was played by Cheryl Lynn Bruce. She's going to be in the 1991 movie Victimless Crime. She's largely a stage actress, though, so we don't see her in a whole lot of, film and TV projects that would be recognizable. She did have a small role in The Fugitive, though. Mr. Sneed, we're going to see him, Tommy Redmond Hicks, in The Five Heartbeats and Illusion. He was also in She's Gotta Have It and Meteor Man, things like that. There's a couple sort of pausing on the credits that I want to mention. Well, first, before I get into that, Kay Lynn Warren was the unborn child narrator. This was her only role, which is surprising, because narrator did a fantastic job. Bonnie Turpin, who played Iona, she's done a bunch of TV work, a lot of guest spots on TV shows. She played one of the moms in the Crossroads movie, the Britney Spears movie from 2002. Mm-hmm. And she was also in several episodes of Undressed, one of our favorite MTV shows of the day. So we got two sort of pausing on the credits of characters that I recognize. Well, one of them I recognize visually, but I don't remember anything about her character. Nana Peazant.
Okay.
Remember, like they said the name, and if I showed you a picture, you'd know who it was.
Is she the one that was helping make the food?
I don't know.
She was the one that was always kind of putting Hagar in her place.
No, because this is like a younger. She's like an Iona type age.
Oh, okay. Because I don't know that woman's name. They never say her name.
Maybe it's the other one, but I don't think it is because it didn't look similar visually to me. But anyway, my own was played by Eartha Robinson. She is going to be in the 1991 movie Josephine Baker Story. She was also a dancer in many movies, such as Malcolm X, La La Land. She's done choreography for What's Love Got to Do with It, Vampire in Brooklyn, Sister Act 2, Dodgeball. She's also one of the dancers in the Living Single opening credits sequence, and she's probably best known for being on the Fame TV series for 62 episodes. But yeah, if you see a picture of her, you'll probably recognize her in the movie, but I don't know what she provided contextually. I don't know how much interaction she had with other characters. The other person I do want to mention is Vertime Grovner, who is credited as hair braider. I don't know if she has any other role in this, but she was brought in because she is well known for having a cookbook / memoir called Vibration Cooking, or The Travel Notes of a Geechee Girl, which was released first in 1970 and had many reprintings beyond that. She's also been a Broadway actress. She's been a longtime commentator on NPR's All Things Considered, and also had a show Horizons. She is a James Beard Award winner for the best radio show called Seasonings. She was on America's Family Kitchen on PBS. So, she's instrumental in bringing a lot of Gullah culture and food to the masses.
That's the woman I'm thinking of in this movie.
I don't think so. I think I know who you're talking about, and again, visually, when I'm looking at pictures, doesn't seem to match.
Oh, okay.
But anyway, Vertime Grovner passed in 2016. But yeah, huge inspiration for this. And that's what I have for cast and crew. Awards, we talked about the awards pretty much already. The only other thing I'll mention is that there was, when it was re-released, there was a special Rediscovery and Restoration Awards in 2013 for the Boston Society of Film Critics, and then the New York Film Critics Circle also gave it a special award in 2016 upon the revival. Otherwise, worldwide gross box office about 1.6 million or so. That's probably largely from the re-release, if I had to guess, which puts it 157 on our list. And of course, of note, it was the very first feature film made by an African American woman to be distributed theatrically in the United States. With that, we go to true crime and pop culture.
Well, I do not have anything crime.
No. Closest thing would be the slavery-related stuff of Ibo Landing.
Yes, which we already spoke about briefly. And since this movie wasn't released, like, we didn't really know the actual release date, we tried to find it out.
Yeah, it was in the Sundance Film Festival, but we don't have the exact date of its first showing.
Yes, it was between January 17th and the 27th of 1991. So I'm just gonna talk about, I found like a blog, like a history type TV blog, like archive of random, I guess, TV guides. And I found one for January 1991, and it talked about the top 10 TV shows and then the bottom 5 as of that month. So I'm just going to name those off.
And that's based off of, like, ratings?
Yeah, based off of ratings for the month. I mean, they even say, like, the top ratings for the month, even for, like, the evening news. So I can do the network ratings for that month. It said that NBC is the top. It has 14.4 million viewers.
I'm assuming that's, like, average of all programs or something.
Yeah, of all of NBC, I'm assuming. CBS is 12.4, ABC 12.3, and then Fox 7.2.
Fox was still pretty new.
Yeah. And then for the evening news, which I was like, okay, ABC. So NBC is the top network, but then ABC is the top for evening news with 12.5 million viewers, then NBC 11.5, CBS 11.5. And then for...
I'm trying to remember who was on... I mean, I think it was
like
Peter
ABC,
Jennings.
yeah, ABC, NBC, CBS. I'm not sure.
I think it was Peter Jennings, ABC. I don't remember who was NBC. And then Koppel was CBS, I think. I could very well be wrong, but I think that's what it was. Mm-hmm. So yeah, people picked their newsman and stuck to him.
So the top 10 TV shows as of the month of January 91. Number 1 is Cheers. This is on NBC. 60 Minutes, CBS. Murphy Brown, CBS. Designing Women, CBS. Different World, NBC. Golden Girls, NBC. And then America's Home Videos, ABC. Roseanne, ABC. And then this was like a 3-way tie at the end. So it was Bob Hope, NBC. Family Matters, ABC. And then Full House, ABC. Those were the top 10 TV shows as of that month. And then the bottom 5.
I'm honestly shocked that 60 Minutes was second, unless there's like some major news story that they covered that month. I mean, maybe it was just that popular in general, but...
Yeah, I mean, we sort of talked about this. I mean, it seems like a lot of people were just watching more, I don't want to say, kind of like Dateline.
Yeah, I don't know if Dateline existed yet.
I know but this is like a pre-Dateline.
And like Cops was just starting.
Yeah,
on
like
Fox,
people were fascinated with
yeah, but 60
stories
Minutes
like
wasn't
that.
really sensationalist in that way. So that's what was weird about it. I don't know. Anyway, the one outlier.
I mean, yeah. So you have 60 Minutes above all these other network shows.
Yeah.
All right, the bottom 5. First one is the show True Colors, which, for the show that I'm going to talk about next, which we watched, we saw a commercial for it.
Yeah.
It was about a blended family, and we sort of talked. I mentioned this.
I think we talked about it.
Yeah.
Yep.
And then the next one is Beverly Hills 90210.
That was bottom?
Yeah,
Wow.
but I think this is like their second season, so I was like, they're probably like still, I don't know, getting ratings. I mean, it lasted for 10 years. I thought it was popular from the get-go.
Yeah. Everyone was always talking about it.
I just thought that was... But, I mean, this is for the month. I don't know if it's, like, a bad month for that show.
Maybe it was, like, all reruns that month or something.
Yeah, I don't know. And then after that is Comic Strip Live, which I tried to find on YouTube, but I couldn't find an episode.
I think we've talked about it once
But we
before.
sort of talked about it.
Yeah, I think it's just like a collection of sketch comedy.
Yeah.
Like, or not sketch comedy, stand-up comedy.
Stand-ups, yeah. That's on Fox. All these are Fox shows.
Right.
The bottom 5. Because, I mean, yeah, Fox is new.
Yeah, and they're not going to count non-network for this list.
Mm-hmm. And the next show is what we watched right before recording, was a sketch comedy show called Haywire. And, I mean, we're going to put this on the website.
Yeah.
Because it's very interesting.
It's bad.
It also included commercials, that excited me.
Yeah, but the commercials are also boring.
The only commercials I liked were the ones for the TV shows coming up, like True Colors.
And it's also interesting to see Leonard Nimoy's daughter hawking a car.
Yeah, an Oldsmobile car.
Yeah.
And there was a lot of Tylenol. Yeah. And there was a lot of Tylenol commercials.
Yeah.
And that made me think, do you know the Tylenol murders?
I do, yeah.
I looked that up. That was in the 80s. And I was like, were they just like hardcore, just pushing off Tylenol as being a good pain medication because of that?
No, I don't know. I mean, it could be also just additional research and studies of like adverse effects of other painkillers.
Okay.
But yeah, I mean.
And the one after that is Against the Law, which we've spoken about before. Another legal drama.
Yeah. But yeah, Haywire is bad.
So yeah, we can go back to Haywire. It was hosted by
Gilbert
Gottfried.
Which we're not sure if it's a one-time thing or if he hosted all the episodes.
That I don't know, because I mean
the IMDb page doesn't seem to be fully like,
yeah, I looked it up on IMDb and Wikipedia, and it's like very little info. But I mean, it's like a sketch comedy thing, but they only show like 2 or 3 sketches, and it's just like kind of like America's Home Videos mixed with like Punk'd or something, or pre-Jackass.
Yeah, like the first thing they show is people at an amusement park who are inside a ride trying to perform tasks like
every day,
a glass of water or shuffling cards or something like that.
Yeah, like trying to brush your teeth.
And clearly they set these people up to it, or like gave them money to be on camera to do these things. But we don't get to see that. Like, we don't get to see the interactions or the setup or anything. We just see them doing these things.
Yeah, and then them trying to do it in this roller coaster. And obviously, they're not going to do a good job doing it because they're going around in circles.
Yeah, it's a lot of half-assed concepts that don't go anywhere.
Mm-hmm.
There's this thing where, we were going to go film at a dog show, but we messed up, and here's what we got instead.
Here's a bunch of children on leashes. Which, I mean, I was like, that was a big thing. I
was surprised that started that early, but I don't know.
I remember children on leashes.
Okay, I don't, because I was like the youngest in my family. Oh. But the concept of, showing kids on leashes and acting as if it's a dog show is okay, but it's not for like a 5-minute segment. Like, it's a one joke thing that could have been put into like a larger package, not be the package itself. And I think that's sort of where the whole thing kind of goes awry, is that it's, I don't know, it feels like early 80s comedy that's just given the wacky gross out appeal of it's not even gross out appeal, but just like the wacky appeal of like 90s filmmaking and graphics. Yeah. Put through a video toaster.
It only lasted from September 1990 to January of 91. So this month is the last month.
Yeah, and then like that like the funniest parts was like the bad dubbing of like they just filmed people at this amusement park.
Just regular people doing
whatever,
everyday
and then
things.
They had to like try to think up like funny things to say.
Yeah, it's like a Who's Line
Yeah, it's like a bad Who's Line sketch.
Yeah.
Where it sounds like they're trying to improvise, but clearly they had opportunity to plan and script something, and they come up with stuff that's worse than what you'd see on Who's Line.
Yeah.
It's worth watching for the train wreck
factor,
just watch but do not expect to laugh.
Yeah. Yeah, we didn't laugh once. I mean, I
laughed at how bad one of the jokes was.
Yeah, I was more like, I was laughing at the commercials more. Yeah. I was like, oh, okay.
Yeah, I would definitely watch an episode of True Colors though.
It just look that does not look good.
It doesn't look good by.
Yeah.
I'd much rather watch a traditional sitcom like that than another episode of Haywire. So we'll move on to rankings and ratings. On your 1 to 5 star scale, where are you going to put Daughters of the Dust?
I mean, I was going back and forth, but I'm going to give this a 5.
So this is going to be your second 5, I think, right?
Yes.
Okay, I got it right.
You got it right.
I got it right.
My first 5.
Your second 5.
Second 5.
On my 0 to 4 star scale, yeah, I was kind of going back and forth on it as well. I'm gonna stick with a 3.5, and again, it's solely because of the over the top acting in certain spots. It just kind of took me
for
out
me
of it,
I was just,
especially at the end.
For me I was just kind of confused a lot, but once everything ended, you have to like piece it together in your mind and like think about it more.
Anyway, every movie is worth watching once. Would you watch this again?
Yeah, I mean, I would probably watch this a lot more just to understand. I mean, now that I know who's what in the family pretty much and the storyline, I'll watch it again just so now that I know everything, and then try to get all the other small details that I may have missed.
Right. Yeah, I think there's a lot that is packed into this, and like I was saying before, it's just very rich with layers and different components and family members that all are interacting in ways that you may not catch the first time around because it isn't a traditional structure. So yes, it's definitely worth watching again, and I think you could watch it 5-10 times and still pick up something new each time. If you out there want to watch Daughters of the Dust, as of this recording in January 2022, it is available on Tubi. Also the Criterion Channel, Turner Classic Movies, Canopy, Digital Rental, VHS, and DVD. As always, check your local listings. As for us, you can listen to us on all your major podcasting platforms. Please remember to rate, review, subscribe, and tell your friends. It does help us out a lot. You can email us at 1991movierewind@gmail.com. Of course, you can follow us on Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, and Letterboxd. Just search 1991 Movie Rewind, or go to 1991movierewind.com for the full list of movies, along with show notes and more. Next week is Valentine's Day, so we're going to go on the romantic angle and watch Earth Angel. That's available on Tubi, Pluto TV, IMDb TV, Roku channel, digital rental, VHS DVD, pretty much everywhere. We will see you then.
Thanks.